Greg has been with us since we started the BattleGround to Breaking Ground program in 2012, and has been with us kind of from the beginning and helped us to build those additional phases of the BattleGround program. Prior to working with us, he was a ag extension economist for AgriLife Extension, so he knows our agency really well, and he knows business planning really well. And I think this presentation that he's done for us quite a few times at our workshops has really opened my eyes on different ways that we can make money on our farms and ranches, and just different ways of thinking about diversifying what we do. And so I think it's really important to share that with all our folks who want to be farmers and ranchers. So with that, Greg, I think I've made you the host. So you should be able to go ahead and share your screen, and then we'll get started with the rural business ideas and opportunities. There we go. I can see your screen. It's in the, it's not in the actual slideshow itself. It's in the, I can see the slide master.
Yeah, I'll put it in the slideshow.
Awesome. All right, you guys. And again, if you have any questions, if you'll just stick them over there in that chat box, we'll kind of be monitoring that. And then, like I said, we'll be pausing every once in a while to address those questions and to give you guys the opportunity to open up your mutes and ask questions if you like. All right, sir,
okay.
Take it away.
All right, very good. Well, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. I'm glad to see that we ended up with so many participants. We've done a lot of these, and maybe had one or two people show up, but maybe the coronavirus is a blessing. Everybody's locked in their homes and nothing better to do but listen to some old man talk about business planning. But so we're going to go through, and this is really an overview presentation, and just give you some ideas, maybe expand your thinking a little bit in terms of the types of businesses that might be available that are, some people don't even think that they're possibilities. Everybody kind of thinks about agriculture as being farming and ranching, and so we will talk a little bit about that. But one of the first points that I want to make is that when we're talking about agriculture businesses, there's not a lot of differences between the aspects of a successful business in general that there is for an agribusiness. The thing that makes agribusinesses different is that most of them are natural resource based. People are going to rely on property and improvements on that property as one of their main resources. So there is going to be some nuances about an agribusiness that we'll talk a little bit about, but I also want to emphasize that there's a lot of opportunities in different phases of agribusiness. In other words, agribusinesses need inputs in order to get their business up and going and their production processes successful and sustainable, as well as getting rid of their products once they do produce them. So there's going to be a marketing aspect to it and as well. So it may be that you have some talents and skills and education in some areas that don't rely on you actually getting out and put your hands in the dirt. So we're going to go over some examples in each one of these 8 different areas. I just kind of broke up this whole idea of opportunities into to some main areas that we'll talk about. And so we'll be focusing on this idea wheel if you maybe want to think about it from that respect. But first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about what this first step is all about. The first step is finding some good ideas upon which you're going to build your business. So what is it about these ideas what characteristics should they have so that they maybe have the greatest chance of being successful in the long run? In other words, what we're talking about this afternoon is we're going to generate ideas, but then we're going to think about criteria so that we can take the ideas that have less opportunities to fit your lifestyle, to fit your particular area that you're in, maybe what it is that you actually want to do, what you know about. So there's going to be a whole host of criteria that we're going to use to take this long list of ideas. And trust me, when you start putting down ideas about businesses, you're going to have a very lengthy list. Well, we're going to want to have criteria that we're going to develop and go through that long list and get rid of those that have the less chance of being successful. And maybe a lot of it has to do with the risk associated with some of them. They're just going to be too risky. And so you're going to say, well, you know, I really don't want to take the chance to go into that particular type of a business. But all successful business ventures are based on solid ideas that have certain characteristics. And we want to be able to go find data, some information about each one of these ideas that you might have, and put all that data together so that you can sift through it and come up with those ideas that you then want to turn around in our second phase, and that is to develop a business plan around them so that you have all this information gathered in one place, and you think about and you do research about those particular ideas that you think you want to pursue. I'm going to apologize up front. Every once in a while, I'm going to have to take a sip of this water over here because with all these allergies in the air, I may start coughing if I don't. So we're going to look at markets because the market is what drives your business. I have a kind of a phrase one of the phrases I like to use all the time. If you don't sell anything, you don't have a business. So the way you sell things is you put them out into a marketplace. So you're going to have to take these ideas and somehow test them out, get some firsthand information in the local area where you're going to be selling this information. You want it to be timely, and you want to talk to people that are going to give you realistic information and realistic opinions about the potential success of whatever it is you're going to, and whatever your endeavor is going to do. It may be growing and selling something. It may be providing some services. It may be a combination of both. Now, one of the cautions that I will throw out there is that a lot of people start creating a business and think that this idea is going to be really, really successful because, number one, they think it's successful. It might be successful. But number two, a lot of times their family or their close friends will say, oh, that's just a great idea. I think you really ought to do it. And so then you leap out there, you buy property, you sink a bunch of money in there, and then you find out that, hey, that was their opinion, but there's not enough people in the marketplace that will open their wallets and buy what it is you're trying to sell. Or there may be some people, but not enough to justify a business. So be careful about getting these opinions. One of the things I tell people when they're writing a business plan, which we're not going to get too much today, but in the next seminar, when we talk about developing a business plan, I always tell people, I don't care what you think, because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm growing these vegetables, or I'm raising these livestock, because I just know it's going to be a success in the area that I live in. Well, we need information, we need data, we need some testimonials or something. You have to go way beyond what you think. So be careful about the opinions that you gather. All right, so successful businesses are characterized by a lot of different things, and we're not going to go into each of these in a lot of detail, but suffice it to say there's some basic structural things that businesses need in order to be successful. One is, first of all, a strong value proposition. Well, what is that? What does that term mean? And one of the things if you're getting into business, if you're not familiar with business, is that the terminology sometimes is the first hurdle that you have to get over. But don't get too hung up on it, because you can now go on the internet and there's all kinds of resources that will help describe these to you. But the whole idea behind a strong value proposition is that you are putting something of value into the marketplace. You need to be able to describe how your potential customers are going to benefit from buying whatever it is that you're selling. And so that's kind of one of the first little things that you need to do, is come up with your value proposition. You need to have some kind of competitive advantages. A lot of people decide they want to grow some kind of vegetables and take them to the farmer's market. Well, if you haven't been to the farmer's market and you get involved in this, and then all of a sudden you take your produce down there and find out there's 10 other people selling the same thing, then you're at their mercy in terms of the pricing of your product. People are going to they're going to look at you and they'll say, well, why is your stuff better than the other stuff? So you need to be able to describe the competitive advantages you might have within your certain marketplace that you have defined. There's a difference between feasibility and sustainability. Something is, sorry about that, there's a phone in here. Feasibility, an idea can be infeasible or unfeasible for a number of different reasons, and it's not always because of the financial aspects of it. It may be something that you just don't want to do, you just don't like to do. It doesn't fit your calendar or your schedule. There's a lot of reasons why something is not feasible. So you're going to try and determine that early on when you're going down through this list of ideas. You want to find something that's sustainable. Sustainable has to do with being able to conserve your resources. It has to be profitable. You need to make money at it. You don't want this to just be a hobby. So there's certain aspects of sustainability that are different than feasibility. Usually a good business plan is a necessity, because it gives you a way to capture all the possibilities, all the contingencies, all of your thoughts, and all the production possibilities. All the aspects of the business go into a good, solid business plan. And then it's your job as a manager to implement and execute that plan. Not that the plan is all set in concrete, but that gives you a starting point that doesn't cost you a lot of money, because you haven't invested in all of these resources and assets. Usually there has to be some capital to invest in this. Most small businesses, you've probably heard, are not going to be profitable, and they may not even cash flow for quite some time. So there's some upfront capital that's needed, and you really would like to look for something that has some growth potential to it. So these are just a few questions that you might want to ask yourself as you're going down through this list of ideas. And I'm not sure we need to really go over them, but you got to make sure people are going to buy it, how much they're going to buy. Oftentimes people think, well, agriculture is I've got some of you may have property already and you're looking to do something with it. Well, that's how hard do you want to work? There's a lot of agriculture enterprises. When we talk about enterprises, we're talking about activities, or in the business parlance, sometimes they call them profit centers. But it's are we going to raise cattle? Are we going to raise sheep and goats? Are we going to grow vegetables? Are we going to raise hay? Or those are different enterprises. So how hard do you really want to work? And what resources are available, and how much is it going to cost to acquire those resources that you don't already have? Does it fit your lifestyle? There's a lot of people that have desires to go somewhere on spring break, for example. Well, if you're having calves during spring break, that's going to upset your family. So that really maybe doesn't fit your lifestyle. Is it financially feasible or is it sustainable? So there's a whole host of questions you might want to ask yourself. This slide kind of just depicts the general relationship between agriculture enterprises and the rates of return that you can expect. If you go into some of the lower risk activities, you can expect lower returns. Just remember, agriculture in general faces much lower returns than you do in some more traditional business activities. If you get some of those enterprises that have more risk associated with them, you know, temperamental plants that you're trying to grow or something that, you know, you can usually expect some higher rates of return. So there's a trade-off in these as you go through and look at your different alternatives. We're really, especially for people that are going to have smaller scale, in other words, probably smaller acreage operations. Therefore, we're probably looking for non-traditional crops or livestock activities. Now, they may have higher risk associated with them, but you're going to do them on a smaller scale. And so you're really trying to increase and have the highest returns per unit of input, which is usually your acreage. So we're looking for things that are going to return higher income per acre. For example, there's been a big boom over the last 20 years in viticulture, the wine industry, and putting in grapes. Well, there's a high cost of getting into those, but you know, they produce a lot of dollars worth of crop per acre. It's important to think about the business from two different aspects. One is the business itself. You have to take care of the operations or the production systems, the marketing and the finance. You may not have to do all of those. You may not be skilled in each of those, but somebody is going to have to be responsible for each one of those. In these smaller scale, small family businesses, it's important to make sure that you think about your personal goals, your family goals, and your business goals, and make sure that they kind of all mesh together. That's one of the first steps we take in the business planning process, is to put lists of business, family, and personal goals down and look for inconsistencies. Because if you find some inconsistencies, it doesn't matter how successful of a business model you put together. If it doesn't satisfy your lifestyle, your family situation, you may not be successful in the long run because it causes too many hardships on the family unit. Okay, this might be a good stopping point, Aaron, to make sure that they have any questions, and I see that you are going to interject something, so let's do that.
Okay, yes, so I was, would you go back to the list of questions real quick for me, Greg, that you had put up there?
There we go.
There you go. So Greg had some great suggestions about getting some real world knowledge and data around things that may be successful ventures in your area. And one thing I think a lot of folks ask is, well, like, how do I do that? Where do I do that? And he gave you some great suggestions about, you know, visiting your farmers markets, your local markets. But AgriLife Extension has some really great resources through their AgriLife Agriculture Economics department. And Texas is organized into regions, so you'll have a district economist. There's also some county data around things that are grown and sold in your counties, as well as AMS, USDA's Agriculture Marketing Service, has a lot of great resources around producing things and what's produced and how much and what things are being sold at what prices. So I think those are some great reliable resources for you to be able to get some of that information. And if you're looking at, I know Greg will talk some about your resource inventories and things, is that your USDA's Natural Resource Natural Resource Conservation Service. Most of you have one in your county, all across the nation. So I highly recommend those guys for anything that kind of like a land-based resource, which most of our operations are, unless you're doing only value-added products. So I can post, somebody asked if I can post links to those in the chat box, and I'll do that for you. And if you're interested in kind of the sustainable agriculture type resources, the NCAT's ATTRA, A-T-T-R-A, is a wonderful resource for lots of different information, including value-added businesses. And we have a webinar that we did on our website called Resources for Veteran Farmers and Ranchers. There's a few specific veteran resources in there, but really most of those resources are great for all farmers and ranchers. So I encourage you to check those out. And that's all I had, Greg.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions they either want to put in the chat box or? Okay, well, go ahead.
I don't see any.
I don't see any. No. Okay, so we're going to move on then. I don't want to keep you any longer than we have to, because we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions that maybe get generated. So let's go around this wheel, and I'll just briefly touch on each of these 8 categories and have a few pictures and notes. For example, I'll make a few comments about each one, and maybe that'll generate some interest or some questions. So the first thing is that a lot of people start thinking about, well, what is it if you're going to grow something? And I assume that a lot of you have in mind that you're going to grow something, whether it's plant-based or livestock-based, whether it can be any kind of plants or anything from produce to hay to specialty crops. I mean, we've got, one of the benefits of participating in this Battlegrounds program for as many cohorts as we've had. I've looked at many business plans, and we've got some very innovative ones, and some that are just very traditional. And if you're going to grow some traditional, more commodities, so let me explain the difference between products and commodity. Commodities are those things like corn, cotton, soybeans, even cattle, and other traditional livestock, sheep and goats, that generally get sold in a what we call a purely competitive marketplace. They take the livestock to the sale barn, 2 or 3 people bid on it, and you have no control over the price. If you're going to raise corn, for example, you take it down to the elevator, and they tell you what they're going to give you for that corn that particular day. So you have no control over the pricing of commodities usually. So what we're interested in are producing products. Well, products have features. We can describe products just like you do if you go to the grocery store. You see all of the ads up there, new and improved toothpaste, or the products have certain features that you can then turn around and describe how the customer is going to benefit from those features. Well, the customers buy benefits. If they can see how your organic tomatoes are better than the regular old field-grown commodity type tomatoes, they may spend more money per pound for your tomatoes and buy yours before they'll buy the others, if you can explain to them how they are going to benefit from buying the organics. That's just one example. So we're looking for products rather than commodity. We're looking for those crops and livestock enterprises that have higher value. Well, something that's sort of a niche crop, some Asian vegetable, for example, that's not available in abundance in your area, might bring much higher revenue per acre than some other more traditional crop. Okay, it may be that you'll produce the same atypical product, but we use some innovative production methods. People are getting into aquaculture, hydroponics, organics. So something that's innovative that creates some higher value to the end product is something that you might want to look at. And in some of those cases, we're actually substituting technology for inputs. We've had a couple of people that are doing some enclosed, like a trailer, and everything's grown hydroponically, and they can just generate all kinds of year-round green production, and so they're spending a lot of money for technology, but they don't have to go out there and buy a bunch of property. Don't have buy a bunch of inputs. It's primarily a water-based thing. So, there's some ways that you can get away from the traditional farm and ranch animals and the crops. The second area we'll talk about is marketing and distribution. You may find that you can take some more traditional livestock or crop products, and with innovative marketing methods, you can make more revenue per acre. We have a lot of people are getting into direct to consumer marketing. In other words, they're gonna raise their beef on their farm, and they're gonna sell it directly to consumers off the farm. That's not innovative. People have been doing it for years, but it's different than raising livestock, taking it to the sale barn, and letting somebody else put the price on it. And you can control that the whole production process that way, and then that feeds into more of an innovative marketing methods. Now social media is available for people. That's not the end all do all. You're not gonna. It's difficult to get into. There's certain criteria that you need. There's certain things you go through, but that's certainly a newer way of marketing than what people have had in the past. Some people bundle things in different ways. There's some people that actually don't raise anything, but they take products from other producers and they put them together in gift packs, for example. Direct to consumer marketing, new markets for existing products. Maybe there's some unique products grown in your area that are not being shipped out of the area, and you make some kind of arrangement that might get into import export, who knows. And then there's ways that you can add value through marketing. Marketing in the business planning workshop, we talk a little bit more about marketing, but there's a lot of activities that are associated with marketing, and each one of them is designed to add value. So if let's say you're gonna have some laying hens out there, well, you don't just sell the eggs directly from the hens or get people to go out there and you wash them, you grade them, you size them, maybe you deliver them. So there's a lot of different ways you can add value through marketing. One of the newer things is that, and this is not just for agriculture products, you see them a lot in the little small malls and stuff. They're called pop-up shops. And so you might have a pop-up shop that's located in one area for a couple of months, and then you move to another area. It's kind of something that you can move around. I guess maybe picture of that cart down there in the bottom would be similar to a pop-up shop. This is for a long time now. I can remember back 20 years ago when this was fairly new, but farm and ranch recreation tourism and hospitality. So this whole idea of agritourism and agri-education, it goes by a lot of different names. But basically you're creating a destination and you're giving people something to do, some place to be. Maybe some places, the house in the middle picture on the bottom is a house out of Jefferson, Texas. And that's just a house, an old family house that sits up on a hill. It overlooks Lake of the Pines. There's the picture of the Lake of the Pines just above it. But there's really nothing there except a swimming pool and outdoor volleyball court. But that's sort of an agritourism thing in that you have access to the lake, but that's a gathering place. A lot of times you don't have to have a whole lot for people to do when they get there. You're providing them a place to get away from the hustle and bustle, spend some quality time with their family. Maybe there's some agriculture related, farm or ranch related experiences that you can put them through. But oftentimes it's just that whole tourism experience. So you're really creating some destination. So you have to look into the tourism aspects of this. You want the whole area to be a destination area. Some people, I'll show you an example later on where a young family got into the agri-education and so I'll bring that up again in just a minute. Historic preservation and adaptive reuse. You may have something on your property, or you may be able to get access to through a purchase of old buildings that were even used for agriculture, but no longer anymore. And you adapt them for some other purpose. I haven't been to the Magnolia Market yet, but that's an old set of silos in Waco that folks turned into retail and restaurants and everything. So there's a lot of different opportunities. It may be that you just have a little farm and you're into collecting old tractors or old farming equipment, and you want to show people how they used to farm in the olden days. So there's a lot of, and the thing about it is people will spend money to go out there. They just might want to spend the day out in the country. One of my clients one time they had about 20 acres. It was out about an hour north of Dallas around Sherman. And they had a bunch of fruit trees and they had a little retail store and stuff. But they would have people come out there. They had some ponds and with some picnic tables around. They'd just come out there on the weekend just to spend time with their family in the country. So you'd be surprised what people are willing to spend money to do. Leases and timeshares. There's a picture of the birder down there on the bottom. That's the use of your natural resources for sure. And there are some areas, if you have access to flyways and whatnot, people will spend, and those people, the birders and those people that are coming out there like that, they're very, very conservation oriented. They're not going to tear your place up like a bunch of four-wheelers might. So, and then of course I've seen a lot of agriculture operations where they fix up a barn and they'll have concerts, and it may be just that you want to lease your property to another producer that runs cattle, sheep, goats, or they want to use it. So, it's all in how you want to use your resources in order to generate some revenue. So, contract services. There's a lot of people that are coming out of the military with a wide array of technical skills, knowledge, experience that they can turn around and apply in an agriculture type setting or something related to agriculture. If you do start a farm and you buy some equipment, you're probably going to have some excess capacity with that equipment. So, contract your services out to your neighbors that can't afford that equipment. Maybe it's just contracting your labor out to your neighbor sometimes. In some cases, you can set up a marketing co-op. There's some sizable marketing co-ops in some of these big cities where they act as a gathering place. They'll collect up produce and meats and other products from producers in the area, and then they end up being broker or the marketing agent for these people. So there's a whole host of things that might fall under this category. You might want to just get into the consulting. In this case, here's an example of some of that agri-education. So the young lady in the upper right-hand corner, Leslie, was a school teacher, and they decided that they wanted to go live on the family farm. And it's actually the bottom left down there, more farms. That was the design for their first corn maze many years ago. But she brings busloads of kids out there at, I don't know, $7, $8 a head, and they stay out on the farm for a couple hours. They bring their own lunch, they bring their own chaperones, and she has different centers set up and things for them to do that teaches them about agriculture. So in a way, she's doing some consulting and education. I know some producers that have sold their farm and they've gone into consulting to help other people start their small farms because they have the experience and the knowledge and expertise. Value added is another important, it's part of that marketing process. It might include some manufacturing. The lady on the left there holding the little pellets is an example. That's a combination of petroleum products and straw, and they make those rubber looking things down there. They're actually for drainage on a house and other products. But the lady in the center makes those mohair blankets. And so there's a lot of opportunities to take raw products and do some kinds of processes with them so that they end up to be a product that has much more value. Now you're going to incur cost to do that value added process, but hopefully the increase in revenue outweighs the increase in cost. That's the whole thought behind that. It's just like raising tomatoes and making hot sauce out of it or salsa out of it. That's a value added process. So I'm going to stop right here right quick. Aaron's put up a few links to some of those resources. If anybody has any questions, I've got a few farm examples here as we wrap this up. Does anybody have any questions they want to post or? Okay, well, let me show you a few farm examples. So Sandy Oaks Olive Orchard is in Elmendorf, Texas. It's just outside of San Antonio a little bit. So Sandy started with her acreage out there and got into planting olive trees. And eventually over the years, she has a real diversified operation out there. So the whole point in showing these examples is that an individual farm may not do just one of these things. An individual business may not do just one of these things. So Sandy actually does nearly all of these within her operation. So she has the trees, she's got a retail store, she's got a nursery and sells trees, and she has a center that, a restaurant, cafe. She holds events out there. She gives field days and explains to people, so there's some education involved. So she's doing, excuse me, she's doing nearly all of these things that I described before. So here's more farms. There's the original corn maze, and there's Leslie with the kids up there in the upper right-hand corner with the trough full of corn. So, you know, to do one of these education deals with the kids is very low cost. You just have to be a little bit creative. Now, Cleve down here in the lower left-hand corner, his part of the farm was to start a CSA, a community supported agriculture. He had subscriptions. He started the first year, he had about 75 people. So they're located in just south of Tyler. And so he had about 75 people that signed up, and he sold vegetables to them every week he'd have a sack full of different kinds of vegetables that he grew out there. And the first year he delivered them to him. The second year I convinced him to make the people come out to the farm, and lo and behold, he didn't lose very many of his subscriptions, and they enjoyed going out there to the farm, picking up their produce and seeing where it was grown. So there's some aspects to this that really are much different than any other type of business, main street, strip mall type business, that people like to get out in the country and get some fresh air. So he does about 5 of these. I checked off about 5 of these things. He probably does some value added processing by now too. So, so those are just a couple of examples. The whole point of this, one of the main points of this was that rural businesses are much more than farming. There's the input and supply side, supply chain type things. There's the doing something different with the outputs in terms of value added and marketing, but there's also ways that you can be very innovative in terms of the production systems that go along with that. So, and I mean, there's, you know, for example, there's the labels. There's a good input. You know, if you want to have a print company, you think, well, I'm in the printing business. Well, I'm also in the agriculture business because a lot of my clients are agriculture. If you've got experience in finance, and maybe you're, for example, maybe some of you have an accounting background, or you're a CPA or something. Well, I tell you, it's hard to find CPAs that know how to do agricultural tax returns. They're different than ordinary tax returns. There's some different schedules and some different ways that you handle things in terms of accounting practices and for taxes. So there's a lot of differences that, and I just really wanted to make the point that rural businesses are much more than farming. So the next steps that you might want to take, start gathering some information, figure out where you want to be, what you might want to do, and start getting this list together. Eventually you're going to develop that plan. Then you can start working that plan, and over time you'll modify and evaluate the plan. And really, bottom line, Aaron, that's what the battleground, the breaking ground is all about, right?
Absolutely. That's what we really help folks get their ideas down on paper. And to Greg's point, it's much more about the planning process than it is really about the plan. I think probably most of our battleground participants would agree that the thing that they get out of it, especially the business planning process, is learning what questions to ask and where to find the information to get those questions answered. So, and if any of you, like most of us, need additional funding to support our agriculture operations, I don't know of a funding source out there that doesn't require you to have a business plan when you ask them for money. So,
somebody asked a question. Any thoughts about ag tourism businesses? Well, I've given you some. It can be very profitable if you get it all set up right and manage it. Which brings the point up. One of the most common questions that I've had over the last, I don't know, when did I start this? 30 years or something, over 30 years ago, is that what can I do to make the most money? Maybe some people have some property, what can I use this property for and make the most money? Or what type of business can I start to make the most money? Well, it all comes down to management. You have to pay attention to the details. You have to kind of have a plan and work that plan. So, you know, I can take you and put you into an ag tourism business. And for example, if you're not a people person, if you don't have that outgoing personality, if you don't get along well with people, you're going to fail. So that's one of the big criteria that for an ag tourism business is that you have to get along with people. You have to learn how to be a salesperson. I mean, regardless of what type of business you're in, you're always looking to something new to do, keep your business up fresh and going, to communicate with people. I got some good friends here, and I live in San Antonio. I got some good friends. We go to their coffee shop all the time. You don't go in that coffee shop, but what the owner greets you, learns your first name, but she's always selling something. She's got it. I mean, she used to have a bakery, and now they have the coffee shop. So you don't just go buy a cup of coffee. She's going to sell you a muffin or some kind of a sweet roll or a sandwich or something. So agritourism is all about finding things for people to do, but also I've had some agritourism clients where they didn't have a lot out there on their place, but it was a place for people to get away for the weekend, get out of Houston, Dallas, El Paso, San Antonio, and spend the weekend quiet time with their family, quality time, and get the sunshine outdoors and those kinds of things.
Well, and I do believe agritourism, one thing that we've had to kind of reframe our brain around, we do workshops that teach folks about how to manage sheep and goats. And so people pay us to come and work all of our sheep and goats. They do their vaccinations, they castrate, they do feet, they ear tag, they do everything. And they pay a good amount of money to do so, and they love it. And we sell out almost every time we host them. And it's not something when we originally started that we would have thought anybody would want to do, because it's something that we do all the time. So it's not something that we're like, oh, yay, let's get out there and do this. But for people who don't get to do it all the time, they seem to really enjoy it. So I don't, it's
sort of an advanced dude ranch situation. I mean, a lot of people like to go to a dude ranch, but you don't necessarily learn anything out there. People, that's one of the things that I learned a long time ago, is that people want to go someplace where they can learn something, either about the area or about doing something, or they like to be able to accomplish something. I read about a rancher one time that he'd have people come out for 1 week, and they'd get a horseback. Of course, everybody wants to ride the horses. They'd get on their horse and they'd move the cattle from pasture A to pasture B. The next group that came in the next week, they moved cattle from pasture B back to pasture A. So, it's a simple thing like that, but these people are paying money to do that.
And usually not a little money, usually a lot of money.
No.
So
you can actually take, I can't remember the website. It's been a long time ago since I saw it. You can actually take vacations that are associated with a certain skill. I mean, if you want to be a fireman, you can go be a fireman for a week, and there's some places that'll put you up, and you can play fireman for a week or cowboy for a week or whatever.
I actually did just see that on Airbnb. We have a little rental, thanks to Greg's some suggestions, a little B&B. And Airbnb suggested that since we have livestock, I don't even want to know how it knows that, but that we should advertise our animal experiences. They have a whole side of Airbnb where you can charge people money to feed your goats, or take pictures with your baby goats or whatever it is. So I think there's lots of opportunities. I think the options really are limitless on what you can do as far as agritourism goes. And I posted a resource for you guys there on, because one of the things we talk about when we talk about agritourism is the liability. In Texas, we are blessed that they've actually created an agritourism act to protect us from some of that liability. We have an AgriLife Extension Law Department that Tiffany is amazing. She's got one of the most popular blogs, actually, I think in the country, or podcast, one of the two. And so I posted
both,
you, or both, yes.
Yeah.
And so I posted you guys the link to specifically the blog article on the Texas Agritourism Act. They're in the resource or in the chat boxes, but I encourage you to look through her website because she has everything from fencing law to leasing laws and handbooks and templates, and she's just a really great resource. And you can even call and ask her questions. She can't give you legal advice technically, but she can answer questions for you if you have something related to agriculture law. If you can, go back to the tab that was your survey, and you should have completed these first pre-questions. You can now click the next button where it says post survey questions, and if you will please complete those post survey questions for me. And once you do that, go on to the next, and then there's just some questions about kind of a satisfaction type survey. And when you see this screen here, you are complete. So if you'll go ahead and do that, we'd appreciate it. We'll give you
thank you. From my standpoint, thank everybody for participating in the webinar this afternoon. It's great to have a number of people on one of these, like I said before, to know you're talking to somebody instead of just talking to a screen.
Absolutely. We've been really enjoyed visiting with you guys and are speaking to you mostly, but you guys are, again, absolutely welcome to ask any questions. But I know after this webinar, I've had to attend a couple different workshops that Greg has done for me before I could really start absorbing the information and putting it kind of into practice. So remember that we'll record it and post it, and I encourage you to go back and revisit it, not just after we post it, but even when you're updating your yearly plans or those kinds of things. We'll go in more depth into it if you are apply or go ahead and pay the tuition to be accepted into the BattleGround program. And so that you can really think of different ways to incorporate some of those ideas into your operations, because I think they're really important. And I've personally taken, I probably should have said at the beginning, we raise grass-fed beef, sheep, and goats. We do some agritourism and a B&B. So we've, at different stages as we've grown our operation, we've used different pieces of Greg's presentation and ideas on business to kind of diversify our operation, and that's kind of how we manage some of that risk. So,
and if they have questions later on, I don't know whether I had a link or whether my email was on that PowerPoint or not, but if they can send questions through you or through AgrAbility or I guess I could put it on the
on the chat. Yeah,
I'll just put it in the chat.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So somebody asked, is a hunting lodge considered an ag business?
Sure it is. You're using natural resources to generate revenue. If you, I've had a lot of people that have a farm or a ranch, and I mean hunting, any kind of outdoor experience, you're using your natural resources. So that's, I mean, it's all in semantics, but I consider that an agriculture business.
And that's something, in order to maintain your exemptions on your operations, wildlife management is one way to do that. So when you're utilizing your local wildlife, and again, the hunting lodge, hunting leases are ways to do that. So
somebody raised it. Let's see, how do you do that? Somebody raised their hand.
Oh, well, that's a great question.
Rama Sanders raised hand.
Rama, can you unmute yourself? Maybe maybe it wants me to unmute you. Oh, she can.
Yeah, that was a mistake. I wanted you to answer the question about the hunting lodge.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Great.
Okay, I
Well,
see. Yeah, I see that now.
thank you for doing that though, because that you're the first person who's, I think, on our webinars has raised their hand. So now we know. Well, good. Hopefully that answered your question. Anybody else? You guys have questions you want to post, or we'll stay on, like I said, we'll stay on a couple minutes, but with that, we are probably done. I'm really grateful for all that joined us. Thank you guys for giving up a little bit of your Thursday afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you again soon, either through our newsletter or at one of our in-person workshops when we start being able to do those again, hopefully soon. And we look forward to meeting you or getting to work with you. So thanks you guys for joining us. Thank you, Greg. Always a pleasure. Always a great job.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, likewise.
And thank you guys. Y'all have a blessed week, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.